Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm one of the education officers for the Football versus Homophobia Youth Panel.
And hi, I'm Beatrice, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm one of the Youth Panel Co-Coordinators. I mean,
really
I would say so. I would say so, Ryan. I think it's very real for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think like that stems, it's like my head has immediately gone to a very sort of philosophical place there. Like is why are you asking that when there's like people like who are telling you it is real, it's an actual named thing, but then equally like I imagine it must feel like a negative for some people, like a lack of something rather than having something, or lack of sexual attraction, or a difference in sexual attraction. It's like you can't prove a negative, so can't disprove a negative either. So where does that leave you in that that weird philosophical bubble? It is and isn't a thing.
And I think, we grew up, we've had conversations about this before, haven't we, Ryan? But, growing up, and certainly for me, thinking, well, what is sexual attraction? What is this thing that other people are experiencing? I don't think I feel it, but how would I know if I'm feeling it? I don't know what it feels like, and what on earth is it? And so I remember having so many conversations with people, just trying to figure out, what does it feel like for you? What does it mean to you? It's like, I don't have a grasp on it. Maybe I have experienced it, but I don't think so. So I think it's definitely a thing that we don't have this, that we don't experience it.
It does bring up that point of you. Of course, people are going to ask, is it a real thing, because you're experiencing something different, and it's always really hard to understand someone else's experiences when yours are different from theirs, and you're never going to experience or you're unlikely to experience those sort of same feelings and that experience as these other people, these people with this different terminology to you, or this different life experience. So it's sometimes quite difficult to understand that it is a real thing. But the most important thing in sort of almost answer to that question is, you might not understand it and you might not experience it yourself, but for other people it's a real thing and it's a valid thing. And instead of trying to understand it, the best sort of thing is to try and accept other people for it. And that sort of real difference, you won't ever sort of understand exactly what it's like to feel that and to be part of that sort of community, but you have always got the opportunity and ability to accept someone else's sort of worldview and what other people are saying. that is a good one. That is an interesting question.
Well, yeah, I mean, because this is always talked about in kind of with all sexualities, isn't it? Certainly kind of talking about, loads of people in my family are gay or whatever. And I have read some stuff on Avon, which is kind of an asexuality forum, and kind of asexual kind of resource space, and other places. Kind of some people have said, oh, actually, I've come out as asexual in my family, and my aunt suddenly thinks that she's asexual, or my grandfather, or suddenly other people kind of realize and recognize that perhaps that's an experience for them. I mean, I don't think there's any kind of proven link at all, but you never know.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting point. I've heard similar sort of things, and I think again, bringing it back to the reason we're sort of doing this today, that Asexual Awareness Day, is that a lot of people from past generations didn't necessarily have access to this sort of knowledge and to know what asexuality was and know what the term means and be able to identify as such. And many people from sort of older generations have had to kind of have subjected themselves to things they were either uncomfortable with or didn't sort of accept, and it's just had that as part of their lives. So yeah, it's completely valid that there may be some sort of people within families who are asexual, and people in sort of different generations below them also be asexual. But it's really important when we talk about any sexuality, and we're talking on a sort of pure genetic side, that you are who we are isn't just built from our past and our sort of genetic, our chromosomal makeup. Who we are is defined both by the sort of makeup of who we are and our life experiences. And that nature versus nurture thing. It's a combination of both. So your life experience and just who you are is always going to be sort of different and unique. Or maybe it's just someone who's accidentally like missed out a word or missed out organisms, and is thinking about how asexual organisms reproduce. And just as a clarification, asexual organisms and people who are asexual, not the same thing. I don't think anyone has yet been able to sort of spontaneously reproduce using their own genetic makeup without immense amounts of money and funds. So and even then,
Ryan, I mean, that's one of our superpowers, sure.
So that's just a ruse. That links to what I was saying recently and just in the past, that there is a fluidity with sexuality, that your sexuality can change, and also your sexuality might never change. So it's really important. It's never, I think, phase, whenever we're talking about sexuality, phase is the wrong terminology to use, because it does feel like an attack in some ways. And I know there's a lot of controversy with people in the past, with creatives in the past, talking about having identified as bisexual and then describing it as a phase in sort of when they've reflected on it, and that using that term a phase can be quite hurtful to a lot of people, who's especially people whose identities don't change. And I think it's really important to know that you are sort of valid, and your sexual identity is valid if it changes or not. If you identify as asexual, and over time you kind of come to a realization that you identify in a different way, your sexuality is different from that, it doesn't invalidate you being asexual in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very fluid. We have to accept, the reasons why people are asexual, be that just kind of naturally, kind of innately, as a result of things that happened, the labels that people choose, perhaps that people might be asexual for, kind of a period of their life, but, also for longer as well. I think it's just that simple act of acceptance, isn't it? Oh, well, that's an interesting one. See, it didn't quite take me back exactly to, what I typed, the first thing I typed into Google. I think I was 20 or 19, 20, just kind of around that mark. It was my second year of university. And I was on Reddit, looking at something on Reddit, and came across this term asexual. And I was thinking, what on earth's that then? So I Googled it and read the phrase, and a little bit like what you were saying earlier, Ryan, it didn't instantly fall into place for me. And so I remember reading it and thinking, it could be me, but no, I don't think it is going to be me. But I do remember the first thing that I went and typed into Google was, can an asexual person have a relationship? And I think, that for me was, it was almost that feeling of, will I have a normal life, or will I fit in if this is me? And I was at that point adamant that it wasn't going to be me. Kind of what would my future look like for me, and but I think to answer that question, why do asexuals date, for similar, I guess, reasons as to why the rest of you do.
Yeah, I think short answer to the question is because they want to. Like not everyone who's asexual will want to date. Some people who are asexual will want to, and they just will because they want to.
Oh. What's expected?
Yeah. And maybe there's a genetic part for me. I'm part Italian, so I can't speak for the rest of asexual folk, but I'm a fan of garlic bread because maybe it's because I'm Italian, but probably not. Probably just because I like garlic and I like bread.
I'm not Italian, so I possibly comment, but wow. I mean, maybe we're yet to meet an asexual person that doesn't love garlic bread.
I mean, the same people who are going to be doing the research about whether asexuality is hereditary, put the garlic bread into the census while you're doing it too, just to confirm the really important question here.
If we do a taste test as well, you know, perhaps some, you know, kind of different types of garlic bread, you know, kind of like thinner bread with more of the ciabatta and stuff. I think we need to really kind of dig deep into that.
I mean, I've already alluded to that with the swords and arrows. You've got to have someone to fight. If you've got a sword and an arrow, or someone to make friends with, I'd prefer to make friends with a dragon personally. You love a tiny little one just to sort of go on adventures with on your shoulder.
So, Ryan, like, I don't know, there's something in this, and Sam, I don't wish to use this as a therapy session, but, you know, Ryan, have you watched How to Train Your Dragon?
I think a long time ago I probably did, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a bit rubbish at film, so I watched it for the first time probably, what year are we in, like 5 or 6 years ago, and I fell in love with it because, you know, this, people who haven't seen it, a great film. How to Train Your Dragon is about a young Viking boy who they kind of, their clan kind of tries to fight dragons and, you know, stop them destroying their village and stuff. And he shoots down this, like, supposedly really deadly dragon, but then builds a friendship with it. And for me, what I was so taken with that film was just the friendship and that bond between, you know, kind of two things. And because, you know, they'd given the dragon kind of quite it was quite a kind of an animal character to it, but it was also, you know, that companion, very nurturing, caring. And for me, it really captured me because I thought, oh, that's what I really want. You know, that's what will be, you know, just the best thing for me, to feel as though there's a connection that I could have with someone that is, you know, that companionship, that is, you know, looking after one another, going out on adventures together, you know, just sharing space and time together, and, you know, just having fun and doing all this stuff. So I don't know, I was really captured by that because it almost gave me a language of, you know, I could have a relationship, and when I say relationship, I kind of mean everything, you know, friendships and all sorts of things, you know. You
don't need to label what a friendship is, a relationship. It's just,
you know, I could build a relationship with someone that looks like that you know, is more of a companionship. So that film was actually really important for me, you know, in kind of processing, you know, where I was, and as you know, discovering my asexuality, and, you know, exploring that, you know, it could be that there's a way for me to have connection, like intensely intimate connections with people.
As I'm actually talking about that, there does bring up sort of the point that I think a lot of asexual folk can find those stories, that sort of same sort of connection often in those sort of animated films, those sort of films aimed often at a younger audience, because in those sort of films aimed at a younger audience, they still need to show that deep, intimate connection between people, but can't use an explicitly sexual context to display that within. At first I was thinking, like, oh, this is going to be like a pure sort of biology. Are you physically able to do something? And then it was like, and now it's like, is there a rule? Like, who's gatekeeping here? What are the terms and conditions when I tick the asexual box? Am I still allowed to cuddle people? Like, yes, you can. Like, there's this, like, you when someone's asexual, everyone has their own sort of difference in how they like to connect with people.
Definitely. And, you know, I know quite a lot of heterosexual people who are quite touch averse and don't really like to be touched. So, you know, all sexualities have differing levels of, you know, comfort with regards to touch and stuff.
Their view of what sort of kissing or cuddling meant was that it leads to something else, and that there's always something that is led to, and then that's the end point. Whereas any sort of point in which you're comfortable is the end point, you know. Like, if you are comfortable up to a point of just cuddling or a point of holding hands, that is your limit, and that's fine. If your limit is kissing, that's fine. If your limit is further than that, in a different sort of sexual sense, then that's fine as well when it comes to physical intimacy. And it's all about your sort of comfort level. You don't have to push past your comfort level. That I know one of the reasons I sort of found out I was asexual was that I realized I was asexual was an experience where when I was in that sort of relationship, and there'd been the outside pressure from us that it had to go somewhere else, that the moment it went anywhere further than kissing, I had a full-blown panic attack and had to leave that sort of situation and escape. And for the whole sort of time I was thinking, so what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I'm broken. Because as soon as it went past this point, I froze. I couldn't cope. And it's really important, I think, to highlight that reflection on our own level of comfort is really important. And I think it's really important that your sexual identity, your gender identity, is your own, and you get to put the label on that. And if asexual and heterosexual works for you, then okay. I think it's just, there's probably just a lot of people within the asexual community that look at that in the same way, because I think there's more of an awareness, as Beatrice has said, there's more of that awareness when you are in the asexual community of that connection with the aromantic community and the aromantic spectrum, and the fact that that sexual attraction and romantic attraction are sort of different things, are different sort of spectrums, different orientations that can match and don't have to match. And that's why for me, I always prefer if someone it makes more of a semantic sense for me on a linguistics level to say if someone is romantically attracted to someone of the opposite gender, that they would be asexual and hetero-romantic. And I think that's the distinction for me, is, as Beatrice said about that, not erasing the romantic orientation, romantic spectrum in the same breath by talking about asexuality. That's a bit of a curveball. Personally, no, because I can't drive. And I'm not in Russia, so no, asexuals can't drive in Russia.
Wow. Oh, my cat's come back again to cause more chaos and destruction. What a curious thing to search for, and it because it's appeared, it implies that's been something that's needed to be searched for multiple times, perhaps. I mean, again, going back to our academic studies, I'm not aware of any studies that have kind of shown a correlation perhaps between the ability to drive, or the ability of poor driving in asexual populations. Perhaps that's another thing, if you've got your dragon in the back of the truck or something, that might have an impact on how well you can drive. It's another one to throw in the mix, really.